Futurama character has it the worst. It's none other than my personal favourite Futurama character, the funny, green and probably depressed alien Kif. First, we need to start from the beginning, chronological beginning, not the beginning of the show, but the beginning of the story. This is probably canon, but in case it's not, sorry. Now, there are a few errors in this, but a lot of it will be explained later. Long ago, a young version of Kif wanted to work for the dupe, and back then, Zapp Brannigan wasn't the sex-crazed ape he usually is. He was actually a good person. However, that changed because the Zapp here isn't actually the Zapp we know and probably hate from the show. Back then, Zapp was a great leader and Kif was in his battalion, and actually Zapp and Kif were friends back then, and not Zapp just forcing Kif to do work for him. So back in these days, they were genuinely mutual. They were both happy with their situation, but Zapp was pretty much the best fighter in the galaxy. Because he was such a great guy and a great fighter, the dupe wanted to clone Zapp. However, in doing so, they basically caused him to have a lot of brain damage. Notice the Kif-like figure next to Mom is a female version of Kif's species, which has been shown before, but not Kif himself. Also, notice that at that time, Richard Nixon was not actually the president of Earth. What I believe this to be is, in certain Futurama episodes, when someone's telling a story, it's revealed that the characters, what they think the story is the story that you're seeing through flashbacks. And this is Kif telling the story of how Zapp turned, evil. So he probably just mentioned the president, and the person he was mentioning it to, Amy, just assumed it was Richard Nixon. As, if I said the president, you'd probably think like Joe Biden or something. So basically, at this point, a scientist is saying, guys, the procedure is turning Zapp evil and mutated. Also note that this this section came previous in the comic, before the one where there's the carbonite reference and the female Kif alike. But it's not that important, it's just showing what's happening. What some could say was luck, but others say was a cruel twist of fate, was Zapp actually was basically, oh, don't worry, Kif, we can still be friends. And Kif was very happy and didn't really question it, unknowing that the state Zapp is now, he basically turns Kif into the bashed individual he is in the cartoon. However, the comic does show that Kif was a somewhat bashed and quiet individual before, so Zapp isn't all to blame. And Kif basically says, I've been putting up with Zapp Brannigan because it's not his fault he's such a bad person. Now, there are actually multiple ways to interpret it that I'll cover. Now, you could say that Kif's putting up with Zapp just because of the friendship they once had. Others could say it's just the only life Kif's ever really known, sucking up to some mentally ill person who really shouldn't be in that level of power. Now, others could point out that since Kif is shown to be quite a good person, he'd feel too guilty if he just left Zapp, who, is brain damaged, basically, and unable to survive on his own. Well, on his own. Now, the sad thing is, because of this, it's not even a theory, it has pretty much been confirmed because it's in a comic, but the sad thing about this is, now there's no way Kif will ever be able to leave because he'll just feel too guilty.